Hey everybody, I'm Zach, and I first want to apologize for how I will be butchering the names throughout this presentation. Um, anyway, the ethnography I chose to read was the Kwakiutl Indians of British Columbia by Ronald P. Rohner and Evelyn C. Bettauer. As the name suggests, the ethnography focuses on the Kwakiutl First Nations tribes, specifically on Guilford Island, which is made up of two tribes, the Coxsatonoc and the Hahumis. The author wanted to learn about what it was like to be Kwakiutl, and were not specifically thinking of this location when they started. Um, but it is a more isolated village, and therefore easier to do some of their work. Another reason they went to Guilford Island was to be teachers at the school. I had to look it up, but this is a map that shows Vancouver Island. And this island right here is Guilford Island, and their village is at the northern part. Anyways, it's has some good pictures. Anyway, so the ethnography is broken into two sections. The first, written in the ethnographic present, is regarding their time spent on Guilford Island, which was divided up slightly. It started in 1962 through 63, and they came back in 64 briefly for 2 months. The second part of the book looks at the major characteristics of the traditional Kwakiutl social systems, and it looks at race, class structure, and other traditions. So how does it compare to some of the other books we've read? I thought it was similar to Lazandunga in many ways, mostly because the knowledge they gain comes from relationships and is shown throughout the ethnography. But I would compare it more with Evans Pritchard's work, though it does focus on what the Kwakiutl were like in the present, back in 1962. The interactions that they describe are not chronological. They are more topical and relate to different themes that they want to address throughout the book, which is similar to how Pritchard describes his personal interactions with the Azande, which were more fewer than his ethnography than this one, which almost entirely was broken down into different interactions that they had that allowed them to learn about what it was like, or what the culture was like. So, something particularly interesting that I thought in the book, comparing it to Genius real quick, her book refers to her having to gain the trust and show that she was not a missionary or someone who was trying to convert them from Catholicism. But with Rohner and Bettauer's ethnographic work, a Pentecostal deaconess, Hilda, was very helpful at first, making sure they were well adjusted into the community and helping them get oriented with the village. But then she transitioned from being a helpful informant to a liability and almost compromising their work. So what happened was, as a Pentecostal, she's against drinking. So when she confronted a man, Henry, about his drinking, and his response was that the teachers, the authors, do not talk bad about Indians drinking, and in fact they drink with them sometimes. She disassociated herself from the authors and accused the authors of only drinking with them to get information for this book, this ethnography. This caused many unpleasant interactions throughout the time that they were there. In one case, they were told to leave and that this isn't the Ritz, followed by some expletives. You'll have something else to put in your book, you spy. So pretty aggressive, but very interestingly, later Rohner attributes some benefits to drinking in the village, which allows a communication that would otherwise not happen. Throughout the book, he talks about how there are a lot that the people are more reserved and don't actually talk about what they really are feeling and what their problems may be with someone. So drinking allows arguments to happen or issues to be addressed, which otherwise wouldn't be. So that was kind of interesting. Also, there was a whole section about drinking. Something I learned was that drinking actually wasn't permitted in Canada or British Columbia for Indians. They had to lobby for it, and in that section of the book, they also one of the lobbyers talks about how he kind of regrets it because of some of the impact that it has had on First Nation tribes. So, anyway, Indians of British Columbia. It's a very interesting read. Learned a lot. I wanted to pick something that was Pacific Northwest oriented and seemed pretty good. Briefly, the second part of the book was all technical and wasn't written the same way as the first part of the book. It was almost like historically looking at what it was like to be Kwakiutl and like how some of the things have changed in some of their practices. And at the very end, they talk about how some Kwakiutls have gone away from traditions, but had come back to it in some ways to make like traditional art and stuff related to tourism, which I thought was interesting. And it'd be interesting to learn how they've changed even further. I did go on Google when I was looking where the island was and found that you could still see where the village is. So there are people still there, or at least the buildings are still there. So it'd be interesting to see how they've changed. Anyway, thanks for watching.